So this shipwreck was found in 1996 by treasure hunters, the company Ingersoll, and they handed the shipwreck over to the state of North Carolina. North Carolina's been managing the shipwreck and everything, all the artifacts that have come off the shipwreck since then. So treasure hunters only have rights to film rights and reproduction rights. The state of North Carolina does everything else. So just want to get that clear. Our shipwreck site, we've been excavating it systematically since 2006. So this is a map of our site, and this line right here is our baseline. This is our main line that we run everything off of. And we started working in the south, and we started kind of mowing the lawn, if you will, working in 5x5 units from the south of the site, trying to find the extent of the site, finding artifacts way out in here. We work till we find 2 empty units that are, so we can make sure we have the whole perimeter of the site. Now everything is buried under sand with the exception of this main ballast pile right here, and this is what sticks out most of the time. This anchor right here, anchor 1, no longer is down there, and that was the tallest point on the pile, and that's the anchor that we have in the warehouse. The rest of these large artifacts are still remain in that pile, and this ring right here is the tallest point. So everything is under at least 2 to 4 feet of sand, all depending on the sand levels out there. Last time we were out there, they were pretty high, which was about 4 feet of sand. So lots of digging to go on, and we're working in 5x5 units. We have worked about half of the site. You can see where our excavation stops, all these dotted lines. So we're about halfway through, so we have another half to go. So as you're going around the lab today, you'll see our lab space and how limited it is as to large artifacts we can store here. So this year we're going out and we are going to be working on this area right here, trying to clean out this bit and hopping over this anchor right here and kind of moving up to this bit. So that's what's going to happen in September. A lot of these cannons that are down here were moved to a staging area down in the south. So 4 of these guns are actually down here, and all this has been lifted. So all this stuff you see here is in the lab, and you'll see a lot of that throughout the lab and tanks and whatnot. So we'll start in the warehouse. We'll see how this stuff comes up, how we store it, what we do with it, and then we'll come back in and we'll show you the finished product. Is that good? And this is the majority of the way our artifacts come up in concretions. And concretions are made up of iron corrosion product, sand, shell, sea life that is just layer upon layer growing upon each other. And anything that is in the vicinity of the iron will get concreted to it. So you can have anywhere from 1 object to hundreds of objects within 1 concretion. So not every concretion is alike. It all depends on its state down on the bottom of the ocean. So a few things that we're seeing in this tank right here, and I love to point this concretion out right here, and this is what we like to call the Pirate's Life concretion, and you'll see the x-ray on this concretion right here. We like to call our Pirate's Life concretion, and you'll see an x-ray of it on the inside. But what I'll point out, what you're looking at here is you'll see a cannonball, a cannonball, and a cannonball, and then you have a bar shot right here that runs from here all the way up to here. And then right within this, I believe it's in this area right here, there's a nice little glass stemware, very delicate little leaded glass stemware, which is why we can see it on our x-ray. So we like to joke and be like, it's the epitome of pirates, right? Drinking and armament. So super. So those are the kinds of things that can be beside one another. Like this concretion right here, you can see ceramics just sticking out right on the outside of it. And this is a ceramic sherd right here. So we have no whole ceramic vessels, but we have a lot of pieces of vessels. And this is one right here that you can see. It's actually a salt glazed stoneware. And then we got earthenware that's sitting right in here, but it's totally concreted within this. And we do have this x-rayed, and this is really a large eye bolt that's in here, and there's lots of other barrel hoops and fittings and tools and whatnot that are all encased within this concretion right here. So you can see that they're all different. You know, the storage space that is required is you can't just be like, well, I got these crates and everything can fit in these crates. It's not going to happen. However, the majority of our stuff in these tanks that you can see are stored in these crates right here, and we have them all labeled. Everything's inventoried as to where everything's at. So our job is to take these concretions and make them look like artifacts that would be recognizable on a ship. So to do that, we have to x-ray this stuff. And we'll get into x-rays when we get inside, but that's how we know how to excavate these things. So we excavate them by pecking these things away with a little tool called an air scribe. It's like a miniature little jackhammer that just pecks things away. And you have to be careful. Things that are really soft, like lead, can be dented with your manual scribe. So you have to know what you're dealing with to know how you're going to deal with it, because sometimes you have to treat things chemically, or sometimes things are totally corroded and you have to cast them with epoxy. So lots of different methods that we have in dealing with these things, but x-rays are key. So this is the process that happens, and this is the part that takes the longest, and we are removing the chlorides in this process. This is electrolytic reduction. What we're doing is we're removing chlorides. Chlorides are salts. Salts are negative. Negative and negative repel one another, so we're running a negative charge to the iron. You can see where we have it tapped. We have actually drilled into the gun to get to a metal surface so we can get a charge all over the entire gun. So negatives being run to this gun, pushing out those chlorides, which are being attracted into solution by these anodes. These anodes have a positive charge running through them. The way we keep track of what's going on in this situation is by monitoring the solution. The solution will climb as far as chlorides go, and then they'll level out at a point of being saturated. Then we have to change out the entire solution. So we do that until we can get it as low as possible. This process can take anywhere from 2 to 3 years, especially for a gun this size. It can go to 4 years. But when you think about it and you put it in perspective,
It's another 6-pounder.
It's bigger than a 6-pounder, actually. It sure is. But when you think about it and you put it in perspective, 300 years on the ocean floor, 5, 6 years to get to a museum, not so bad, right?
Not bad at all.
4-pounder. And we have already cleaned a lot of things off of this cannon. There were hundreds of artifacts that were attached to it. So we took them off in large chunks, because then we can take that into the x-ray room and see what's inside those. We can't get a cannon in there because, as you'll see when you see our space, we're just not set up for that, or have a strong enough power to get through it anyway. So what's going on here is we've taken the majority of the stuff off, except for some things that are laying right on the surface. And this right here is about 3 strands of rope that are wrapped around this muzzle right here. So we're kind of leaving that. This is an iron surface. This is not right here. Here it is. We still got to get this stuff clean. Here we are at iron surface. So this is almost done. It's almost through the cleaning process of getting the concretion off. There's also rope that is wrapped around the button right down here. And this is certainly part of the function of what was going on with the cannon. When it was sitting on the carriage, you would wrap rope around the button, and it would be tied to the side of the ship, so when the gun would fire, it wouldn't recoil across the entire ship. So that's what this remnants rope is. The rope on the muzzle is probably remnants of it being stowed away and with it not being in use. You would wrap the rope around the muzzle, kind of kick it up, and then push it against the side of the boat. This gun also has a tompion in the muzzle as well, which is a wooden plug, which is a blessing for us, because you can only imagine a space that's about 3 inches in diameter and about 5 feet, 8 feet long, depending on the gun. We have to clean the bore of these cannons as well. So with a wooden tompion in there, in the guns that we have experienced from this site already, there has not been concretion inside, but they have been loaded. Right now, we have investigated 6 cannon bores, and out of those 6 cannon bores, 4 have been loaded with a charge. And 1 was actually loaded with a wad, a cannonball, another wad, and then 3 bolts stuck up the bore, and then another wad. So that's certainly not gentlemanlike conduct. This is anchor A1 that we recovered in May of 2011. Here it is in its nice, huge tank, and it is about 12 feet long. The width on it from fluke to fluke is about 7.5 feet wide. There's a large ring also on the other end that takes up a lot more space. The tank that it's in right now is great for, its purposes of keeping it wet. However, it's not practical for us to actually get to and move around. We have a small gantry crane that we use to move everything in this lab, and the gantry crane will not fit around this tank, so it has to be deconstructed to then get around to the anchor. And it's a huge process. So what we would like to do is have a frame of the actual tank built, and we already have a liner that we have picked out that will work, and it's a frame and a T. And that's what we need for this tank, so we can get our gantry crane around it, pick it up, and not have to deconstruct something just to get at it to work on it. So that's the deal with our Anchor A1. It is a wonderful object, but we need a new tank for it.
There was a difference between a French foot and a English foot, and among other things, this measures to a French foot. So that actually helps us in, saying this is Blackbeard ship. It's Le Concorde, because Le Concorde was French made. So what we have here is a unique artifact that was found. It's called a cluster syringe, which would administer enemas back in that day. It was very popular, and it was the thing to do in the 18th century. King Louis the 16th, over his reign, he had 2,000 enemas administered, even during court. It was a thing of cleansing back then, and so when we first found out all about this, we were like, oh my goodness. And we found out it was a thing for them to do. So
this is the business end.
Yes, this is the business end, and the nozzle would have, yes, that's a good way of putting it. And the nozzle, they had different nozzles that they can screw on and on. And right here would have been the actual plunger, because there would have been a wooden handle, like a syringe, where you pull in your liquid and then you push it back out.
I'm talking something that big.
Yeah,
like the head of it is at the museum.
Yeah.
And it's like sitting up this far. So you're talking like that's a massive amount of liquid.
Liquid going in, and
oh my God!